breaking news. The US government has shut down for the first time in 6 years after lawmakers failed to reach an agreement on extending federal spending.
October 1st, 2025, midnight. The US government shuts down. Now, if you're thinking, here we go again, you're right. This is the 22nd shutdown since 1980. But this one's different. Republicans control everything. House, Senate, White House. They literally have every vote they need to pass a budget. So why did it shut down? Because they couldn't agree with themselves. Let that sink in for a second. They have full control and still manage to crash the whole system, then blame Democrats for not saving them from their own dysfunction. But while politicians point fingers, real consequences are hitting real people. Traders saw this coming, put options ready. They're making money today. 750,000 federal workers, clocking in. No paycheck, just a promise of eventually. TSA agents screening passengers. Air traffic controllers guiding planes. Border Patrol on duty, all working for free. SNAP benefits freezing. WIC programs stalling. Student loans on hold. And the people who cheered for smaller government? They're about to learn what happens when you actually get it. Today we're breaking down who wins, who loses, and what this really costs. Welcome back to Mind Mirror. Let's talk about what they're not telling you.
Now, I'm not going to say I'm happy about the U.S. government shutdown, but I will say this. On my TikTok live from yesterday, I told my people, I hope you got your puts ready. Because if you know how to play the U.S. stock market, which still goes on even in a government shutdown, if you got your puts ready, you got money. You are going to make money. Let's not be mad about what's happening. Let's make money off of what's happening. If you don't know how to do puts, and I've been screaming this whole time since August, get your put game ready, get your put game ready, get your put game ready. I've been screaming it since August. Now it was delayed. It took a minute to get here, but everything should be falling tomorrow. Or excuse me, today when the market opens.
Okay, real talk. This person gets it. If you understand market mechanics, a government shutdown is predictable. Put options make money when stocks fall, and uncertainty always drives volatility down. But here's the thing most people miss. The stock market isn't the economy. Wall Street does fine during chaos. It's Main Street that suffers. So yeah, traders with puts are making bank. Meanwhile, TSA agents are working without paychecks. National parks are closing, and food assistance programs are getting cut off. It's the perfect summary of how disconnected financial markets are from real human impact. You can profit off disaster and still watch people lose everything. And that's not criticism of the trader. That's just reality. The system rewards those who can play the game. But let's not pretend everyone's playing with the same chips.
Everything should be falling. So, get your game ready. All right? Okay. All righty. Bye-bye.
The US government has officially gone into shutdown. From midnight last night, the majority of US government services have come to a temporary halt. So, what does this mean, and how can a government just go into shutdown? In the US, the government can go into shutdown when funding plans cannot be agreed on. In this case, congressional Democrats refused to support a Republican plan to extend funding for federal departments unless they won a series of concessions centered on healthcare. The Republicans were short of the 60 votes they needed to pass the spending bill. Senate Democrat Chuck Schumer said on Tuesday evening that Republicans are plunging America into a shutdown and risking America's healthcare.
So let's be clear about what happened here. Republicans didn't have the votes to pass their own spending bill, even though they control both chambers, because Democrats refused to gut healthcare protections, not expand them, just keep what already exists. And the Republican response? Shut it all down. Now you're going to hear people say both sides are to blame, but that's lazy thinking. If I'm holding a knife to my own throat and saying give me what I want or I'll do it, and you refuse, who's really responsible? The people demanding concessions aren't the ones causing the shutdown. The people who'd rather burn the house down than negotiate are. And this isn't new. We've had 21 shutdowns since 1980. Guess which party was in power for most of them? I'll give you a hint. It's not the one that believes government should function.
So, who does this impact? Border protection, in-hospital medical care, law enforcement, and air traffic control are still expected to continue operation. However, benefit verification, card issuance could stop, alongside food assistance programs and the issuing of student loans, which are expected to be curtailed or closed. But will this impact the economy? Analysts estimate a shutdown this time could affect roughly 0.1 to 0.2 percentage points of economic growth for each week that it lasts. The last shutdown was in Trump's first administration in 2016, with the longest one lasting 36 days, a current record. Over the past 50 years, shutdowns have become more common. So what do you think of this? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below.
It's 5 a.m. and the government has officially shut down, and I have a flight. And I heard the airport's going to be fucked, so let's go see what it's like to be one of the first flights out when the U.S. government has completely shut down. Okay, so getting through security and checking bags and everything usually takes me like 30-ish minutes at SeaTac, so we'll see how long it takes today. Not looking optimistic. I'm not seeing a line, but there are lots of people coming in. It's 7:42. Start the timer. 7:46, just got through checked bag area, though that is a private company, so that doesn't mean much. I'm not scared yet, but the line is increasingly growing. The time is 7:54. Okay, just made it through security. It is 8:02, so it only took 20 minutes. The difference, though, is that this is the Wednesday morning after the government shutdown, so there aren't really anybody calling out sick as of right now. It's also just a Wednesday morning, so the airport is going to be less busy. From what I have heard from other experts in this space is that they expect this to become more chaotic the longer the shutdown remains. So you're going to be waiting a lot longer if you are getting to the airport last minute in a week or so. You might be missing flights, there are going to be flight delays, there are going to be flight cancellations, and getting through TSA is just going to be hell. But since we got here so early, I'm going to go sit in the lounge and have a drink.
This traveler just gave us the real insight. Right now, the shutdown's impact is minimal. 20 minutes through TSA, not bad. But that's day 1, day 2, day 3 of unpaid work. Here's what people forget. TSA agents, air traffic controllers, border patrol, they're all essential, which means they have to keep working, without pay, for however long this lasts. Now imagine you're living paycheck to paycheck. You've got rent due, groceries to buy, maybe a car payment, and your job says, yeah, keep showing up. We'll pay you eventually, maybe, once Congress figures it out. How long do you think people stay motivated? How long before they start calling in sick? How long before the system actually breaks? That's why this person's right. It's fine now. But give it a week, 2 weeks. Suddenly you've got hour-long TSA lines, flight delays, cancellations, and all because politicians couldn't agree on a budget.
You have no idea what's going on with the shutdown. These are the only 2 things you need to know. The Democrats refuse to sign a budget bill that will cause us to lose a ton of health care. They're not asking for more. They're just saying to the Republicans, hey, can we keep what we have? And if we lose it, a lot of people are going to pay double for their health care. And the Republicans refused to negotiate, so government got shut down. The second thing is that you're going to hear this lie that the Democrats want to give health care to the illegals. And I hate to tell you, but undocumented people can't get health care. You're literally just being lied to. That's all you need to know. Tell a friend.
Yep, this is it. If you're relying on government programs, student loans, SNAP, WIC, housing assistance, you better have already applied, because once the shutdown stretches beyond a few days, those systems start freezing up, applications stop processing, payments get delayed, people fall through the cracks. And here's the cruel irony. The people most affected by shutdowns are the ones who can least afford it. Wealthy folks? They're fine. They've got savings, investments, multiple income streams. But if you're a federal contractor, a low-income family relying on food assistance, or a student waiting on loan approval, you're screwed. And the people who caused this shutdown, they're still getting paid. Congress doesn't miss a paycheck during shutdowns. Their salaries are mandatory spending. So yeah, they get to play politics while other people suffer the consequences. That's not governance. That's hostage-taking.
Hey, twin, go sign up for the government loan assistance program right now. Because if this government shutdown continue, you out of luck, twin. I can't save you. I can't. I made sure I was one of the first ones to sign up to that motherfucker. Because I'll be down.
I'm standing on the National Mall in Washington, D.C., and there is something just behind me you might recognise if you can see it through the trees. I'm just hiding out in the shade. It's the Washington Monument, and normally people travel from around the world to visit this, to visit the US Capitol, which is just down there, and the White House just over there. But today, a sea of disappointed faces, because that is closed, as tours of the US Capitol and of the White House, because The people who decide how to spend the government's money haven't decided for the next financial year on how to spend it. Yes, I've roped you in to talk about politics, but it's important. So basically, each year, people who work in Congress decide how they're going to spend the country's money, your money, going forward. And as of just after midnight on the 1st of October, that was the deadline for them to decide on how to spend it, and they haven't, which means we've gone into a government shutdown. So what does a government shutdown look like? Well, what it means is that non-essential government-funded services essentially shut down. Lots of workers will be sent home, or they'll be working without pay. Essential workers will be continuing working, so law enforcement, the army. I can hear a plane just overhead. There is an airport just down the road. Air traffic controllers, they'll continue working, but without pay. And in hospital, patient services will continue. But for things like these memorials and monuments and so on, they get funding from Congress, so they have closed. Now, just behind me as well, the Smithsonian museums, you might be familiar with them. They run along the side of the National Mall. They're staying open for the time being. I've just been to one. But on their website, it says if they don't get funding by Monday next week, they will also have to close. At the moment, they're raking in some of the funding that they were given from the last financial year. So that's the situation that we're in at the moment. But how long will it go on for, and what's the resolution to it? Well, that's anyone's guess. At the moment, the disagreements are about funding around how to spend money on healthcare. So things like how to fund Medicaid and how to support people with health insurance. At the moment, the people who make the decisions around that are undecided. They can't pass a bill to decide on how the money gets spent. The last government shutdown was late 2018, early 2019 under the Trump administration around funding for Trump's border wall. That one was the longest one in history. It lasted for 35 days. So a lot of non-essential services closed for that. The national parks and stuff, they stayed open, but without staff. So people kind of went in and ruined some of those. So it has a real impact on people who are living in the United States. But like I mentioned, until a decision on the healthcare funding is agreed or a temporary solution is found, places like this just behind me and a lot of non-essential government services will continue to be closed, and many government workers, in fact 750,000 government workers, they will continue working without pay.
750,000 people, 750,000 government workers working without pay. Let that sink in. You show up, you do your job, you keep the country running, and at the end of the week, no check. But they'll get back pay eventually. Yeah, eventually. After the shutdown ends, which could be days, weeks. Last time it was 35 days. Try telling your landlord, I'll pay you eventually. See how that works out. And this is what kills me about the small government crowd. They scream about cutting waste, firing bureaucrats, shrinking the federal workforce. But then a shutdown happens, and suddenly everyone realizes, oh wait, we actually need these people. We need TSA agents, park rangers, FDA inspectors, USDA meat inspectors, people processing Social Security claims. Turns out government isn't just some abstract thing you can hate. It's real people doing real jobs that keep society functioning. And when you shut it down for political points, real people suffer.
The US government is shutting down, and this does not look good for traders, but you need to understand this is not the first time this has happened. The last time we had seen this was when Trump was in office in 2018, and if you look at what price had actually done at this point, you can see that we had seen a range, okay? So price was ranging, and then after the government was back up, we started to see expansion. Why is this happening? The reason that this is happening is when the government shuts down, essentially nobody's working, okay? So none of the economical data, none of that is actually coming through. So your NFP, you're not going to see your NFP and it's going to be delayed. Your CPI, the economical data will not be released because the government is shut down. So instead of, a lot of traders might be thinking price might be extremely volatile. Yes, there might be some sort of reaction. Now we could actually expect price to start ranging and wait for the economical data, so the government to be back up and running before offering expansion and before offering its true direction. So Yes, this means that price might have volatility in the first few days, but after that, you can definitely expect price to just range and be very slow. So be careful because this can be good and bad for traders.
This trader's hitting on something important. Shutdowns create market uncertainty, but not the way most people think. Yeah, there's initial volatility, some panic selling. But then what happens? Nothing. Price ranges, markets wait. Why? Because all the economic data that moves markets, jobs reports, inflation data, GDP numbers, that all comes from government agencies. And when the government's shut down, that data doesn't get released. So markets just sit there, waiting, trading sideways. Which means if you're a trader expecting huge moves, you might be disappointed. But if you're patient, you can profit off the range. And that's the difference between understanding systems and reacting emotionally. Shutdowns are predictable. The outcomes are knowable. You just have to think ahead. But most people don't. They panic. They make bad decisions. And they lose money. Same thing happens in life. When you see chaos coming, you either prepare or you don't. And preparation always wins.
How common are government shutdowns? Well, the first one was in 1980, and since then there have been 21 in total. That very first one was under Jimmy Carter, and it only lasted one day when Congress refused to fund the Federal Trade Commission. But even that short pause cost about $700,000. Then came the Reagan years in the 1980s. Reagan actually holds the record for the most shutdowns, 8 in total. They were usually short 1 to 3 days, but they happened again and again. Fights were always over taxes, domestic programs, and even foreign aid to Nicaragua. In 1990, George H.W. Bush faced a 3-day shutdown when Congress and the White House clashed over deficit cuts and raising taxes. That one cost around $2.5 million. But the real drama came in the 90s under Bill Clinton. In late 1995, Republicans demanded deep spending cuts, and the government closed for 5 days. Just weeks later, it happened again, but this time for 21 days. Those were over Medicare, education, and the environment. The 21-day shutdown was the longest one that America had ever seen at the time, and it cost the economy billions. Now, fast forward to 2013 under Barack Obama. The government shut down for 16 days when Republicans tried to defund Obamacare. That fight racked up at least $2.5 billion in back pay and fees, plus billions more in lost growth. Then came Donald Trump. In early 2018, there were 2 short shutdowns, one over immigration and one over defense spending. At the end of that year came the big one, 35 days. That was the longest shutdown in U.S. history and the most recent one up until today. That was all over funding for the border wall. Economists say that one cost the economy about $11 billion. And of course, here we are in October 2025, and this shutdown just began on the 1st. This one is over spending cuts, healthcare, and foreign aid. Experts say that shutdowns like this drain about $1 billion every single week, which means that if this one drags out, it could rival or even surpass 2019's. It feels like we have shutdowns all the time because it's often threatened, but it doesn't usually actually lead to a shutdown. Most of the time, they agree on a budget at the last minute, but not this time, so we'll see how long it lasts.
21 shutdowns since 1980. 21. And notice the pattern. Most of them are short. 1 day, 3 days, a week. Because usually at the last second someone blinks, but sometimes they don't. Clinton's 21-day shutdown in 1995. Trump's 35-day shutdown in 2019. Both times, the damage was massive. Billions in lost economic growth, delayed payments, closed services. And here's the thing, shutdowns don't save money. They cost money. You're paying people to not work, then paying them again in back pay later. You're delaying economic activity, which shrinks GDP. You're creating inefficiency across the entire government. It's expensive political theater, and we all pay for it. So when people say, good, shut it down, teach them a lesson, who exactly are you teaching? Because it's not Congress. They're still getting paid. You're teaching the single mom who lost her WIC benefits, the park ranger who can't pay rent, the student who had their loan application frozen. That's who learns the lesson, not the politicians.
Shit is about to get very real. The government shut down, and today the president released this truth, I guess you call it, where he's openly saying, hey, I called the guy that wrote Project 2025. We're about to sit down, have a meeting. He's going to tell me the things he wants me to get rid of next. And what I think is coming next, amongst many things, but 2 things I think they're really going to try to take advantage of during this shutdown, is pretty much completely shutting down housing and urban development. I went to their website. They have this crazy propaganda on the front page, which is insane. Again, if for anybody who doesn't know, Republicans control House, Senate, and the presidency. So this kind of messaging is just insane. Anyway, the other department I think they're going to go after, whatever's left of any kind of environmental protection agencies. They want all the guardrails done. That means fossil fuel regulations, carbon dioxide regulations. They want it all done. Wind. He wants wind gone, solar gone. And as we know, he doesn't want these things gone. Somebody that's paying him wants these things gone. People like the Heritage Foundation, the people that wrote Project 2025, which is literally a list of the things that they're trying to get done while they're manipulating this man in office. So this government shutdown, which he's blatantly saying, hey, I'm evil. And it's crazy that the Democrats are going to let me be evil. That's what he's saying in this truth or tweet or whatever this is. That's what he's saying. I'm going to do some evil stuff. Can you believe they're going to let me do it? It's almost like they want me to do evil stuff. So yeah, that's really interesting and wild that he's not even trying to hide the fact that he's doing evil shit. And they tell you a lie to your face and they expect you to believe it. And some of you believe it, and that's sad. But yeah, man, so I think that he's going to come for the EPA, whatever's left of it, and he's going to make being homeless illegal. And I'm not being hyperbolic. I'm not being like an alarmist. I really think that's what's going to happen. He's going to criminalize homeless people and then send the National Guard into these cities where there's a high density of homelessness. So places like San Francisco, which he named, places like Los Angeles, which he named. He's going to go and rally these people up and then make them slaves. So yeah, I'm sure there's like a more eloquent way to put that, but that's the long and short of what I think is going to happen. But I don't think he's going to do what Brian Kilmeade suggested, which is, kill me them. So anyway, yeah, happy Thursday. Thursday. Let's drink up, man. 2025.
Bro, the craziest thing is that the Democrats have just shut down the government because they are willing to give literally anything to an illegal immigrant over an American citizen. Literally anything. I don't care if it's a peanut. They'll take it right out of your hand and hand it right on over to her. And everybody wants to blame Donald Trump for it. Make that make sense. The man was literally trying to lower taxes, secure the borders, strengthen the schools, put more jobs out there in the job market, and the Democrats blocked him at every single turn to make sure that someone who isn't even from here keeps their benefits. Like, what? And what's crazier than all of that is that y'all want to sit around and clap like seals while they put everyone ahead of you. The rent's high, the groceries are high, the school systems are literally failing, and the neighborhoods are crumbling, and for what?
Their cards punched. Remember, 5 shutdown days in a row and you get, well, this.
As the shutdown grinds on, if it lasts for a certain chunk of time, money will start to dry up in key federal programs like SNAP, which is the Nutrition Assistance Program for lower-income Americans, like WIC, which is nutrition assistance for mothers and infants, and the list goes on. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, that will still be processed, but you could also see delays there too the longer the shutdown rolls.
And plus, no pay for millions of federal workers and contractors, and that all adds up.
It is a slow grinding, as I said, of the federal government to a halt that could be seriously detrimental for millions of Americans.
My God, Americans could lose access to SNAP benefits, health care, federal workers could lose their jobs. It's almost like Republicans were already doing this, but now they have to act like it's terrible news.
The president takes no pleasure in this. The president did not want a shutdown. I'm telling you.
And here we go, the moment everyone was waiting for. Democrats shut down the government because they care more about illegals than Americans. Except, that's not what happened at all. Democrats refused to sign a bill that would have cut healthcare subsidies for millions of Americans. Not immigrants. Americans. Citizens who rely on those programs to afford insurance. But sure, let's blame immigrants. That's easier than admitting the real issue. Republicans wanted to cut benefits, Democrats said no, and Republicans chose shutdown over compromise. And you know what's hilarious? The people repeating this lie are the same ones who will lose their healthcare if those cuts go through. They're cheering for policies that hurt them, blaming people who had nothing to do with it, and calling everyone else brainwashed. It's not politics, it's performance. And the audience is too busy clapping to realize they're the ones getting played.